This film is brought to you by New York Life and its dedicated agents, proud sponsors of the NFL's team highlight films. New York Life, the company you keep.
Chance on the light side. Let's go. Ready? Yeah.
2 years ago, a wild card Minnesota Viking team stunned the heavily favored 49ers and advanced to the NFC title round. Last year, San Francisco returned the favor en route to a Super Bowl championship.
For the third straight year, the Minnesota Vikings traveled to Candlestick Park for the playoffs. In 1989, the difference was they went as division champions.
Montana gives it off, loose ball, fumble, and the Vikings, I believe, have it. Minnesota saying they do, and the referees agree. The Vikings recover the fumble inside the 10-yard line.
For the second straight year, an early lead quickly evaporated. The Vikings became the first to fall as the 49ers Super Bowl Express shifted into high gear. For Jerry Burns, it was no consolation. It's never easy ending a season with a playoff loss. But the 1989 Vikings achieved a number of milestones. First and foremost, they won the NFC Central Division title. For the second consecutive season, the Vikings were the #1 defensive team in pro football. And for the first time since 1975, Minnesota was undefeated at home, the only team in the NFL to accomplish this in 1989. The championship chase reached full throttle on the opening Sunday in a 30-point win over Houston. While there were detours on the road to the title, the Vikings stayed their course and firmly grabbed hold of the wheel on the season's final Monday night.
Nicely done, Scotty.
In a do-or-die game, Minnesota responded. The Minnesota Vikings ended the 1980s the same way they began the decade, as champions of the NFC Central. Jerry Burns' 3 previous seasons as head coach had all produced second-place finishes and 2 wild-card playoff berths. The objective in 1989 was to win the division. The ammunition was tightly coiled in the Metrodome chamber. The league's top-rated defense and the offensive firepower to explode past opponents. The Vikings were fully stocked with exciting performers on both sides of the ball. One of them, wide receiver Anthony Carter, had his eyes on the prize on opening day as Minnesota began a run of 38 unanswered points against the Oilers.
The Oiler 32. Here comes the pressure again. Wilson to throw, and he goes deep far side. Anthony Carter has got it!
They will signal a touchdown. The Wilson-Carter combination strikes again.
All right, baby. All right, dude.
Stay on him now. No letdown. No letdown at all.
The defense, anxious to defend its title as the NFL's stingiest, made certain there was no letdown.
He didn't have no one to go to. That killed them.
Second and goal, Minnesota at the Oiler 3. Rick Penny straight up the middle. Touchdown, Vikings. As Rick Penny bulldozes his way for 3 yards to pay dirt.
Way to go, defense!
In a dominating display of all-around football, the Vikings began the 1989 season on the highest of notes. But this winning tune soon segued into a dirge. Road trips the following 2 weeks proved to be full of potholes, and the Vikings could not steer clear of defeat. They returned home on the season's 4th Sunday, ready to settle in for a 3-game stretch at the Metrodome. And their guests would all be division opponents. Against Tampa, the man of the moment was 9-year veteran Leo Lewis.
At the 14-yard line on the run. Nice move, Leo. 20, 25, 30. Leo Lewis, 35. At the 40. Leo Lewis cuts far side, 45, 50, 45, 40. Leo Lewis down to far sideline, 30. All the way down to the 21-yard line. Tommy back to throw. Looks right. Fires right. Leo Lewis got it at the 5. He scores! Touchdown, Minnesota! Tommy Kramer to Leo Lewis, who's been the star today. 28 yards. Touchdown, Vikings.
The following week, Keith Millard was the dominant force. Against Detroit, he recorded 3 sacks and intercepted a pass as the Vikings won again.
Hipple drops, half roll to the right. Noga's got him again. Millard with an interception. 25, 30. Millard at the 40. At midfield. Millard trying to break a tackle. All the way to the 32-yard line.
Green Bay was next to be doomed in the dome. Millard added 4 more sacks. Cornerback Reggie Rutland picked off 2 Don Mikowski passes. And linebacker Ray Berry wrapped things up with a safety.
At his own 12 from the shotgun. Mikowski, Ray Berry is blitzing. He's got him, and it's going to be a safety. Ray Berry's got Mikowski in the end zone. Put up 2 more on the board for the Vikings.
But this game really belonged to the newest member of the Vikings. He had come to Minnesota earlier in the week in one of the most talked about trades in recent memory, and his opening act brought down the house.
Herschel Walker, 5 yards deep, hesitates, now brings it out. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Herschel down the sideline. He's all the way to the 47-yard line. A 52-yard kickoff return. The first time he touches it in a Minnesota uniform.
Herschel Walker's sense of the dramatic could have come right out of a Hollywood movie. This was Lethal Weapon 34.
From the eye, here comes Herschel on 2nd and 5. Across the 30, 35, 40. At midfield, Herschel breaks away, loses his shoe, and he's all the way to the Packer 26-yard line. 50 yards, the first time he touches it from offense for the Minnesota Vikings.
Walker's 148 rushing yards were the most by a Viking in 6 years, as one of the largest crowds in franchise history rocked the Metrodome. This overwhelming show of support had a strong impact as Minnesota won for the 3rd straight time. The knockout punch was delivered on the road. The last of 4 consecutive division games had the entire league standing at attention. For the 3rd straight week, the Vikings sacked the opposing quarterback 8 times. And they continued to raise the ante. They forced offenses to pay with turnovers, recovering 3 fumbles and intercepting 2 passes, giving them 12 takeaways in the last 3 games. Add to that Herschel Walker's first touchdown as a Viking, and Minnesota's 4-game division winning streak had this team looking very much like a champion. The NFL season is a marathon, not a sprint. The long haul demands patience and rewards perseverance. As the Vikings prepared for the season's grueling second half, They carried with them the memory of their Monday night matchup with the Giants. By halftime, the Vikings had physically punished the NFC East champions. An important road victory seemed well in hand. But one play in the third quarter changed the course of the game. 24 unanswered points by the Giants sent Minnesota home a loser.
32! Move!
So the stretch run began with the Rams. For the Vikings, there could be no lingering effects from the loss to the Giants. Yet it was a game that took on a similar look. Minnesota's defense again set the tone, delivering the blows that shook the Metrodome. After three quarters, the Vikings had pounded out an 18-7 lead. All their scoring the result of Rich Karlis. Karlis attempted 6 field goals. He made 6 field goals. That established a new Viking record.
There you go. Every time now. Every time.
Again, a grinded-out victory over one of the NFC's best seemed a certainty. But 2 fourth-quarter Ram touchdowns broke Minnesota's defensive spell. With only 28 seconds remaining, it was the Vikings who needed the magical touch.
The receivers are Lewis, Jones, and Gustafson all to the left. Here comes the blitz. Wade Wilson loads, goes deep again. Same spot for Hassan Jones, and he caught this one. Hassan's got it at the 21-yard line. Do you believe it? Moments ago, it looked like they wouldn't have a wing and a prayer. To tie an NFL record, 7 field goals in a single game, and to help send his team to OT, Rich Karlis from 40 yards out. Here's a kick on the way. It is good! Karlis with number 7, and we're tied at 21.
On the 5th play of overtime, the comeback was consummated.
Hatcher to punt. Merriweather blocks it. This one is over. The Vikings have won it in overtime. It was the most dramatic come-from-behind victory of the NFL season. After a giant detour, the Vikings were back on the championship road. The following week, in Tampa, the Vikings won their 6th out of their last 7, exploding for 17 first-quarter points. Reggie Rutland scored the defense's 4th touchdown of the season to fuel the charge. In 1989, for the 2nd straight year, the number 1 defensive team in pro football played in Minnesota. It was a unit composed of many parts. Players like Keith Millard, the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year, and Chris Dolman, whose 21 sacks led the league and set a Viking record. There was safety Joey Browner and cornerback Carl Lee. Linebacker Mike Merriweather, who was acquired in a draft day deal a year ago, was a big play contributor. While Ray Berry emerged as a solid starter at the other outside linebacker position. A number of other young players stepped forward in '89. Third-year pros Reggie Rutland at cornerback and Henry Thomas at defensive tackle. And second-year end Al Noga made this unit the league's most complete. And there remained Scott Studwell,
the 13-year veteran and the team's all-time leader in tackles. Every week of the 1989 season, the Viking defense was ranked #1 in the NFL. But against the Bears on the season's 13th Sunday, it was the offense that pulled rank. Behind the line of Irwin, Kalis, Loudermilk, McDaniel, and Zimmerman, Wade Wilson directed a big play passing game that featured wide receivers Hassan Jones and Anthony Carter.
Wilson, here comes a full blitz again. Throws complete to Hassan Jones at the 40, 30, 25, 20. Hassan down the sideline. It's a touchdown.
Wade Wilson drops back. Sets up, has time, deep in the middle, and he's got AC at the 10, at the 5. Touchdown, Minnesota! Anthony Carter did the last yard in midair.
In their final division game of the season, the Vikings buried the Bears. A week later, against the Falcons, Minnesota moved a step closer to the title with their highest scoring output of 1989.
Here's a pitch to DJ Dozier. Option pass coming. Man wide open, Anthony Carter! Touchdown!
Now the Vikings control their own fate. 2 games remained. 1 victory, and the division championship was theirs. First up was a trip to Cleveland's Municipal Stadium. On a day when the temperature hovered near zero, with 20-mile-per-hour winds, very little would separate the thrill of victory from the chill of defeat. It would be a game in which the Vikings would show their ability to play on the road under adverse conditions. Both teams were fighting for division championships. It would be a test of will more than anything else. On this bitter winter's day off Lake Erie, touchdowns were hard to come by. Late in the third quarter, Herschel Walker sliced through the frigid air and the Browns' defense to carve out a 10-7 Vikings advantage. The division title was well within Minnesota's grasp. But the Browns grabbed the lead right back, only to see the Vikings hang on with this Steve Jordan touchdown in the final period. When 4 quarters were complete, the game was tied at 17. In overtime, it took a trick play to defeat the Vikings.
Snaps clean. The kick is no. Hagel throws to Waiters for a touchdown. They fake the field goal for a touchdown, and the Browns win it in overtime.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Brad Nessler with Stu Voigt from the Metrodome. Tonight, a big game. Monday Night Football, the final regular season game of the year, and the Bengals and the Vikings both need the victory to advance to postseason play.
Take no prisoners tonight, baby. Let's go.
A Viking victory would produce the team's first division title since 1980. But the Vikes must get by the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals.
Let's go, Browns! Let's go, Browns!
Visions of Super Bowls still dance in the heads of these two teams. The winner goes on, the loser goes home. First down, Minnesota. Wade Wilson drops to throw. Here comes a blitz. Wade to the screen pass. Rick Benny broke a tackle at the 10, at the 5. Benny touchdown! He got there!
With the 16-week marathon now down to 1 game, the Vikings sprinted out of the blocks. They gained control on both sides of the ball, with the defense really putting the squeeze on Cincinnati's AFC best offense. For 1 half, Minnesota took the game right away from the Bengals. The Vikings had clearly accepted the challenge. The season-long objective of a division title was well within reach.
Rich Carlos field goal attempt. He's perfect so far tonight. This one on the way, and it is good. And the Vikings lead 19-0.
It looked easy. The Vikings would be back to the playoffs for the third straight year, this time as champions. But very quickly, their backs were against the wall.
Esiason, play action, drops to throw, sets up, has time, wide open in the flat is Taylor at the 15, at the 10. And the Bengals cut it to 22-20. Extra point coming up.
Late in the fourth quarter, a gutsy call by Bernsey crowned the Vikings champion.
Here's your season. 4th and goal at the Bengal 1. Wade, play action, wants to throw, lofts it to the end zone, and it is good for a touchdown! Vasilski, he caught it! Central